Noth the Plaguebringer sat in his private chambers in Dalaran, testing the various effects arcane magic had on the Plague of Undeath, casting various enchantments on the vials of bubbling orange fluid, now trivial parlor tricks to Noth himself. Despite the goal of this experimentation exciting him greatly, he found himself growing rather bored of the path towards said goal, losing himself in memories of the distant past. He remembered old Dalaran. He remembered the day it fell. Noth Chamberlain, Wizard of Dalaran, was supposed to retrieve his future student Ras from the city of Stromgarde a few weeks ago, but that task had been made irrelevant when Orgrim Doomhammer's orcish horde had sacked the ancient city, leaving only rubble and the echoing laughter of thirsting gods. Since that day, Noth had done what every other living being was doing up until that day. Shore up Dalaran's defenses, sharpen magical skill, and pray to whatever might be listening that they had a hope of ending humanity's green nightmare. It had not gone well for the defenders of Dalaran, as their city had been subjected to a similar fate as Stromgarde, and looking at the wreckage of a once great city, the horrors he had witnessed perpetrated at orcish hands, he almost forgave the traitorous King Perinold for his cowardly actions. Almost. In the end, the Kingdom of Alterac found out that appeasement was not a good idea when it came to orcs. But most galling of all was the response of that old fool Terenas Menethil, who had decided to spend the gold in the royal coffers not on rebuilding his allies, not on the ruins of Dalaran or Stromgarde, but instead on internment camps for humanity's most hated foe. Could they not see that the only remedy for the orcs' despicable existence, and any of their light-forsaken sympathizers like that idiot Tyrion Fordring, was a swift and decisive removal of their heads? King Greymane was right to shirk the demands of the Alliance and hide behind his almighty wall. Even in victory, the so-called Alliance could not remotely be trusted to work together. Laughing grimly, he theorized that the High Elven race, without proper assistance from the Alliance, might have been better off meeting its end at the hands of the orcs rather than what Arthas had subjected them to. This thought brought his mind back to the present, and he realized he didn't have long. Exiting his chambers and moving into the streets, he found Dalaran in a similar state as in the Second War. A blanket of fear and dread hung over the city, as families hurried through the streets toward any functioning portal they could find, and soldiers rushed in squads to their battle stations, their mana shields pulsating. The Death Knight Arthas Menethil was bearing down on the city, with the now Archlich Kel'Thuzad at his side, at the head of a mighty undead army, and Noth's task was to weaken the defenses of the city however possible. When he first heard the summons of the Lich King, he had needed the convincing of his friend Gothic to answer his call, and it was the idea of a force unshakably united to defeat the invaders of their world that had him answering the will of the Lich King. Ever since Kel'Thuzad had been banished from the Mage City, Noth, Gothic, and any others they could convince had worked tirelessly to help spread the plague of undeath in Lordaeron. To think he had almost fallen prey to his remaining compassion as he saw what the plague was doing to the citizenry. Kel'Thuzad had since purged that weakness from him, freezing his heart solid to do so. Arriving at the entrance of the city library, Noth greeted Gothic with but a nod, as they both now had a delicate task before them, and they entered in lockstep. Inside, Gunther Arcanus was helping lawkeeper Polkelt sift through the countless magic tomes of the library in search of spells that would counter Kel'Thuzad's necromancy. Noth grabbed Gunther by the shoulder, quickly overwhelming him with non-existent matters that required his attention, leading him out of the library, whilst Gothic moved past them to dispose of the withered old lawkeeper. It didn't take long for them to round a corner into a dark alleyway of the city that his acquaintance Maldazar had prepared with an illusion. To anyone looking into the alleyway, it would seem empty and silent. Such was not the case, however, as Gunther quickly realized what was going on and summoned his magic, only to be silenced by Noth, who began strangling him with but a simple garrote tainted with the plague of undeath. His knowledge of the dark arts of necromancy were far too dangerous for him to be left alive. Noth, however, believed he would make a most powerful lich once his will had been bound to the scourge. As Gunther breathed his last, Noth had no time to waste, telling Maldazar to uphold the illusion as long as he could. Archmage Antonidas had already announced the blocking of teleportation spells to the city, so their way out was fleeting at best. Taking cover in yet another alleyway where Gothic had arranged they meet, Noth opened his portal and waited. And waited. If there was one thing he knew about that bastard Gothic, was that he was a particularly work-shy individual and wondered what in the name of the Lich King could be taking so long. He wasn't exactly opposed to leaving that old idiot in the city, but he couldn't imagine Kel'Thuzad being particularly fond of lacking his specific skill set. As Gothic appeared around the corner, running like a madman for his age, Noth followed Maldazar through the portal, holding it open already becoming strenuous from the city's magical lockdown, but Gothic hurled himself through, just in time for the portal to violently snap shut. Now, staring down the vanguard of the final answer to human ineptitude, with Arthas at its head, already mocking Antonidas at the gates of Dalaran, Noth saw Kel'Thuzad floating over to them for a briefing on their mission, before smiling as he saw Gothic collapse to the ground, convulsing from a heart attack. The lazy sod was taking his first break already. As Gothic reanimated, Noth spied the ruined remains of Lawkeeper Polkelt shambling along with the other ghouls, and contented himself with Gothic having done his job well, along with the fact that they had all earned themselves a nice relaxing city slaughter.